The UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter shuddered violently as it banked hard over the dense jungle canopy, its rotors carving through the humid air at 180 feet. Inside the cramped cargo bay, Staff Sergeant Josie Flores triple-checked her HK-416 assault rifle, her gloved fingers instinctively tracing the familiar contours of the weapon that had become an extension of her body over 4 brutal years in Special Forces. 90 seconds! The crew chief bellowed over the deafening rotor noise, his hand signals emphatic against the wind whipping through the open doors. Josie adjusted her night vision goggles, settled her helmet more firmly, and moved toward the starboard door where the fast rope hung coiled and ready. The jungle below stretched endlessly in every direction, a dark green nightmare of triple canopy forest, broken only by occasional clearings and the silver thread of a river catching the dying afternoon light. Somewhere down there, in that hostile territory crawling with insurgent forces, an American CIA officer was running for his life with a laptop full of intelligence that could reshape the entire war. The enemy knew it too, which is why they'd thrown every available fighter into the hunt. The mission brief had been brutally simple: fast rope insertion, locate the operative, secure the intelligence, extract before nightfall. 5 operators, 70 square kilometers of enemy-controlled jungle, and maybe 4 hours of daylight left. Simple on paper, suicide in reality. 30 seconds! Josie gripped the rope, her HK-416 slung tight across her chest, adrenaline beginning to override the pre-combat calm. Around her, the other 4 members of her team made final checks. Master Sergeant Alex Rivera, their team leader, caught her eye and nodded once, the silent communication of operators who'd worked together long enough that words became redundant. The helicopter flared hard, nose pulling up, the pilot fighting the aircraft into position over their insertion point. Through her NVGs, Josie could see the landing zone, a postage stamp clearing surrounded by jungle so thick it looked solid from above. Go, go, go! But before we show you what happens when a 5-person Special Forces team drops into hell with orders to bring back 1 man and the intelligence that could win a war, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Because what's about to unfold in this jungle will demonstrate exactly why Special Forces operators train for the impossible, and why Josie Flores is about to have the most intense 12 hours of her military career. Josie didn't hesitate. The instant the crew chief gave the signal, she grabbed the thick nylon rope and stepped into empty air. The ground rushed up to meet her through 80 feet of nothing, rope burning through her gloves despite the controlled descent, her HK-416 bouncing against her plate carrier with each twist of the rope. She hit the ground in a tactical crouch, weapon immediately coming up to cover her designated sector, east, where the jungle pressed thickest against the clearing. 3 seconds later, Master Sergeant Rivera landed beside her with barely a sound, his own HK-416 already tracking potential threats to the north. Then came Staff Sergeant Michael Tech Lawson, their communications specialist, followed by Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, their weapons expert, and finally Staff Sergeant Jason Doc Williams, their combat medic. The Black Hawk was already climbing away, its rotor wash flattening the elephant grass before the sound faded into the jungle's oppressive silence. Within 30 seconds, they were alone in enemy territory with nothing but their training, their weapons, and each other. Rally Point Alpha, Rivera's voice came through their encrypted comms, barely above a whisper. Standard dispersion. Flores, you're on point. Santos, rear security. Move! Josie pushed forward into the jungle, her HK-416 an extension of her body after countless missions. The German-engineered rifle was perfect for this environment, compact enough to maneuver through dense vegetation, reliable enough to function in the worst conditions, accurate enough to make shots that mattered. She'd personally zeroed this weapon before deployment, knew exactly where every round would impact out to 400 meters. They moved in tactical column, 7 meters between each operator, weapons covering overlapping sectors, every sense dialed to maximum. This was Indian country, territory controlled by a well-organized insurgent force that had been operating here for years, knew every trail and ambush point, and had already demonstrated their willingness to kill Americans. Tech, status on our package? Rivera asked quietly. Lawson, monitoring the encrypted beacon that their CIA operative was supposed to be carrying, checked his specialized receiver. "Signal's active, Sergeant, bearing northeast, 1.8 kilometers. But it's stationary, been in the same position for the last 30 minutes. "Could be hiding," Santos suggested from her rear security position, her voice professionally calm despite the implication that their target might already be captured or dead. "Or setting up an ambush," Josie countered, scanning the jungle ahead with professional paranoia. "We won't know until we get eyes on." They pushed deeper into the jungle, navigating terrain that seemed designed to kill soldiers. Roots hidden under leaf litter waited to trip the unwary, mud sucked at boots with every step, thorned vines caught on equipment and uniforms. The canopy overhead was so dense that even in afternoon, the jungle floor existed in perpetual twilight. Josie read the environment like a language she'd learned to speak fluently. The way certain plants grew indicated water sources. The absence of birds suggested recent human activity. The subtle trails through undergrowth revealed where animals, or people, moved regularly. Her HK-416 tracked with her eyes, muzzle following her line of sight with practiced synchronization, 30 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, 6 more magazines in her kit, 210 rounds total. "Hold!" Josie whispered, her fist coming up in the tactical signal for stop. The team froze instantly, each operator dropping into firing positions, creating a defensive perimeter with overlapping fields of fire. Josie had spotted something, a piece of fabric caught on a branch about 15 meters ahead, light tan, like the color of civilian clothes that someone trying to blend into rural areas might wear. "Eyes on possible evidence," she reported quietly. "Fabric on vegetation, bearing northeast, 15 meters. "Flores, Santos, check it out," Rivera ordered. "Everyone else maintains security." Josie moved forward with Santos providing overwatch, both of them maintaining tactical spacing and weapons discipline. As she got closer, the fabric resolved into definitely being from Western-style clothing, a piece of khaki shirt, torn and caught on thorns. "Fresh," Santos observed. "No weathering. Still has that manufactured smell. Within the last few hours." "Blood," Josie noted, indicating dark stains on the tan fabric. "Not much, but whoever this came from is injured." "Trail continues northeast," Santos said, pointing to disturbed vegetation and partial boot prints. "Western-style boots, not the cheap sandals the local insurgents typically wore. Moving fast, not being careful about noise discipline." "Because he was running scared," Josie finished. She keyed her comms. "Sergeant, our operative definitely came through here within the last few hours. He's injured but mobile, moving fast toward his last known position, not maintaining operational security." They pushed on, following the trail their CIA operative had left. Josie didn't like how obvious it was. Broken branches at shoulder height, scuffed earth, disturbed leaf litter that practically screamed, "Someone came through here." Either the operative was too panicked or too injured to care about tradecraft, or he'd been in such a hurry that stealth became impossible. The jungle pressed in from all sides, every shadow potentially hiding an enemy fighter, every sound potentially the prelude to an ambush. Josie's finger rested lightly on her trigger guard, not on the trigger itself, not yet, but ready to transition in a fraction of a second if threat materialized. "Movement," Santos reported from rear security. 7 o'clock, 60 meters, single individual moving parallel to our route. Everyone froze again, weapons pivoting toward the indicated direction. Through her magnified optic, Josie strained to pick out details in the jungle gloom. There, a figure moving with deliberate caution through the undergrowth, AK-47 variant rifle held at low ready, olive drab uniform that marked him as insurgent force. "I've got him," Josie confirmed, her crosshairs settling on the fighter's center mass. "Single hostile, armed with AK pattern rifle, moving west to east, appears to be on patrol." "Search pattern," Rivera assessed quietly. "Looking for our operative. Nobody fires unless we're compromised. We can't afford to announce our presence." The insurgent continued his patrol, weapon up, clearly searching for something, but he hadn't detected them yet. The team's camouflage and noise discipline was keeping them invisible, hidden in plain sight less than 60 meters from an enemy who would kill them without hesitation if he knew they were there. Josie tracked him through her optic, finger now touching her trigger lightly, safety selector on fire, breathing controlled. At this range, with this weapon, she could drop him before his nervous system could process what was happening. The insurgent moved through their observation area, paused once to examine something on the ground, then continued westward on his patrol pattern, eventually disappearing into the dense vegetation. "Clear," Santos reported after 30 seconds. "Where there's one patrol, there's more," Doc Williams said. "They're running systematic search patterns." "Then we need to move faster than they can search," Rivera decided. "Flores, increase pace." Josie picked up speed, still maintaining tactical discipline, but sacrificing some stealth for velocity. The operative's trail was becoming more erratic now, suggesting either increasing injury or mounting panic. She saw places where he'd fallen, handprints in mud where he'd pushed himself up, more blood on leaves and bark, signs of someone reaching the limits of physical endurance. "Tech, how's our beacon signal?" Rivera asked. "Stronger," Lawson confirmed. "We're within 400 meters now. Signal's still stationary. The GPS showed they were closing on the beacon location, jungle growing even denser. The canopy overhead blocked almost all sunlight now, giving the environment a twilight quality that made their NVGs almost necessary despite it being mid-afternoon." That's when Josie heard them. Voices speaking in the local dialect, multiple sources, coming from directly ahead, maybe 75 meters. She raised her fist immediately, and the team froze mid-step. "Contact front," she whispered into comms. "Multiple hostiles, estimated 6 to 8 individuals, 75 meters. Sounds like they're stationary." "Get us off this trail," Rivera ordered. "Concealment positions, total silence. Nobody moves until we know what we're dealing with." The team melted into the jungle with the practiced efficiency of ghosts, each operator finding positions that broke up their human outlines and provided both concealment and cover. Josie wedged herself into a natural depression behind a massive tree root, her HK-416 oriented toward the voices, body positioned to observe without being observed. Through gaps in the vegetation, Josie caught glimpses of movement, insurgent fighters, maybe 8 of them, spread around what looked like a small clearing. They were armed with a mix of AK-47s, SKS rifles, and at least one PKM machine gun. Professional loadout, not the random collection of weapons that poorly trained militias carried. And in the center of the clearing, tied to a tree with his hands behind his back, was a white male in civilian clothes, matching the description of their CIA operative. Late 30s, athletic build, khaki clothing torn and bloodstained, face bruised and swollen from what looked like a recent beating. "Visual on the operative," Josie reported quietly. "He's captured, restrained, appears to have been interrogated. 8 hostiles visible, mixed weapons, 1 crew served. They're set up in a perimeter around him." "Shit," Rivera breathed. "Tech, confirm that's our guy." Lawson pulled out a small tablet with the operative's photo. Even at this distance, the match was obvious. "That's him, CIA officer Daniel Kramer, operating undercover as an agricultural consultant. He's the package." "What about the laptop?" Santos asked. "I see a backpack near him," Josie observed. "Could be in there, but no way to confirm without getting closer." Rivera was silent for a long moment, running tactical calculations. 8 armed insurgents with good positions and a crew-served weapon versus 5 Special Forces operators. The math could work in their favor, superior training, surprise, better weapons, but it would be loud, violent, and risky. "We're not leaving him," Rivera finally said. "But we do this smart. Assess for additional forces, identify firing positions, plan our assault. We get one chance at this." "I can take the PKM gunner," Santos offered. "First shot before they know we're here. Without crew-served weapon support, they lose their biggest advantage." "I'll take the one who looks like leadership," Josie added, identifying an insurgent who seemed to be giving orders to the others. "Drop him early, disrupt their command structure." "Doc, you're on Kramer," Rivera ordered. "The second we open fire, you move to secure him. Cut him loose, assess his medical status, be ready to move fast. Tech, you're with me." "We take the center mass of their formation, maximum violence in minimum time." They spent the next 5 minutes moving into optimal firing positions, each operator finding angles that maximize their fields of fire while minimizing exposure. Professional work, the kind that came from hundreds of hours of training and real-world operations where mistakes meant death. Josie settled into her position with her HK-416's stock welded to her shoulder, breathing controlled, crosshairs on the insurgent leader's chest. At this range, maybe 60 meters, the 5.56 millimeter round would have plenty of velocity and energy. "Stand by," Rivera whispered. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute." Josie's HK-416 cracked twice in rapid succession, double-tapped to center mass on the insurgent leader. He went down instantly. Santos's first round took the PKM gunner in the head, clinical precision that eliminated their most dangerous weapon before he could bring it to bear. The jungle exploded into chaos. Rivera and Lawson were pouring controlled fire into the center of the insurgent formation, their HK-416S working in deadly synchronization. 2 insurgents went down in the first 3 seconds. A third was wounded and crawling for cover. Doc Williams was already moving, sprinting through the kill zone toward Kramer, knife out to cut the CIA officer's restraints. The insurgents who survived the initial volley scattered, returning fire wildly in multiple directions, not yet having identified where the Americans actually were. Rounds cracked through the jungle, impacting trees and earth, some coming dangerously close but most flying high or wide. Josie transitioned to her next target, an insurgent bringing his AK up toward where Williams was cutting Kramer loose. Her fingers squeezed smoothly, the HK-416 barked once, and the insurgent's weapon clattered from dead hands before he could fire. "Package is mobile," Williams called over comms. "Multiple injuries, but he can move. We need extract route now." "Rally point Bravo," Rivera ordered. "Bound back, alternating cover. Flores, Santos, your first bound." Josie didn't wait. She was already moving, keeping low, using terrain and vegetation for concealment. Her HK-416 up and ready to engage any target that presented itself. Behind them, Rivera and Lawson maintained suppressive fire, their HK-416S laying down controlled bursts that kept insurgent heads down and prevented organized pursuit. "Flores! Santos set!" Josie called once she'd reached good cover 40 meters from the contact site. "Rivera, Lawson, move!" It was textbook battle drill, bound in overwatch, one element always moving while another provided covering fire, constantly maintaining pressure on the enemy while creating distance from the danger area. Williams had Kramer up and moving, half dragging the CIA officer who looked like he'd been through hell but was conscious and mobile. "Contact left," Lawson called. "More hostiles, at least 4, moving to flank." "Engage," Rivera ordered, and the jungle erupted with gunfire again. Josie pivoted, her HK-416 tracking toward the new threat. Through gaps in the vegetation, she could see insurgent fighters trying to outmaneuver them. Her optic found a target, insurgent fighter moving between trees. She led him slightly, squeezed the trigger, saw him go down hard. But they kept coming. For every insurgent they dropped, 2 more appeared from the jungle, drawn by the sound of gunfire. This was their territory, their home ground, and they had numbers on their side. "We need to break contact," Santos called, her voice tight but controlled despite dropping her second magazine and slamming in a fresh one. "We're burning through ammo and they're not stopping." "Rally point Charlie," Rivera decided. "All elements bound back, maximum speed." They executed a fighting withdrawal, constantly engaging targets, constantly moving, constantly working together to create overlapping fields of fire. Josie dropped her first magazine, slapped in a fresh one, 4 magazines remaining, 120 rounds. Still plenty if they were smart about it, but the rate they were expending ammunition meant they'd run dry eventually. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit were growing. The insurgents had recovered from the initial shock of the ambush, were organizing a coordinated response, calling in additional forces. Josie could hear vehicle engines in the distance, technical trucks with mounted weapons probably, racing to cut off their escape. How far to Charlie? Rivera panted into the comms. 600 meters, Lawson reported. But Sergeant, we've got a problem. Radio intercepts suggest they're moving forces to block our extract point. They know where we're going. Kramer, Williams said grimly. They interrogated him. He probably gave them everything. Doesn't matter, Rivera decided. We adapt. New plan. We push past Charlie, continue northeast to the river, call in, extract there instead. That adds 2 kilometers, Lawson calculated. It's also unexpected, Josie pointed out, dropping another insurgent who'd gotten too close. They won't have blocking forces there because Kramer couldn't have told them about it. We just came up with it. Exactly, Rivera confirmed. Tech, call it in. New extract point. Tell them we need that bird in 90 minutes and we'll be hot. They pushed through the jungle at a pace that would have been reckless in training. Kramer was struggling, his injuries taking their toll, but Williams kept him upright and mobile through sheer determination. Break right! Santos suddenly shouted. RPG! The rocket-propelled grenade screamed through the jungle, impacting a tree 15 meters behind their position, exploding with enough concussive force to knock Josie sideways. Shrapnel tore through vegetation, some pinging off her body armor, her ears ringing from the blast. But she kept moving, kept her weapon up, kept scanning for threats. You didn't stop when shit went wrong. That's when discipline and training mattered most. Everyone good? Rivera called. Good, came the responses, though Josie's left arm felt like someone had hit it with a baseball bat where shrapnel had caught her. Not bleeding badly, nothing broken, she could still fight. Keep moving, Rivera ordered. They're using RPGs, which means they're getting desperate. Standing still gets us killed. The river appeared through breaks in the jungle canopy, a brown ribbon maybe 40 meters across, flowing fast with recent rains. Rally Point Delta, Rivera designated, indicating a spot where the riverbank formed a natural fighting position. Set security. Call in the bird, prep for hot extract. They collapsed into defensive positions, each operator covering a sector, weapons oriented outward. Kramer was placed in the center, Williams already working on his injuries. How bad? Rivera asked. Broken ribs, possible internal bleeding, definitely concussed, Williams assessed. Multiple lacerations, signs of systematic beating. He's functional, but needs a hospital soon. Tech, where's our ride? Blackhawk 7-9er is inbound, ETA 70 minutes. 70 minutes was a long time to hold a position when the enemy knew where you were and had superior numbers. Contact, Josie called, her HK-416 already firing. Enemy force approaching from the west, at least a dozen hostiles moving tactical. The jungle erupted with gunfire as the insurgent force launched their assault. At least 12 fighters moving in coordinated pairs using proper cover and concealment. Josie's HK-416 barked in controlled bursts. Her first target went down clutching his chest. Her second target dove for cover, forcing her to shift fire to a third trying to flank their position. RPG! Santos screamed. The rocket screamed over their position, missing by maybe 10 meters, impacting the river behind them with a massive geyser of water. Suppress that RPG gunner, Rivera ordered. Josie spotted the RPG team reloading behind a fallen log about 70 meters out. Long shot through jungle vegetation, but doable. She steadied her breathing, put her crosshairs on the loader's visible shoulder, squeezed. The HK-416 cracked once. The loader jerked, dropped the rocket, fell sideways. The gunner scrambled to recover it, giving Josie time for a second shot. This one caught him in the side, putting him down permanently. RPG team neutralized, she reported, dropping her empty magazine and slamming in a fresh one. 3 magazines left, 60 rounds. We've got movement on the river, Lawson called. Boats! At least 2 with mounted weapons. 2 small boats were racing upstream, each mounting heavy machine guns, carrying additional fighters who could land behind their position. Santos, shift fire to the boats, Rivera ordered. Santos transitioned smoothly, her HK-416 engaging the lead boat. Her round stitched across the bow, caught the boat operator, and the vessel immediately veered off course, its nose digging into the riverbank. But the second boat kept coming, its machine gun opening up with heavy caliber fire that tore chunks out of the trees around their position. "We can't hold this position indefinitely," Williams shouted. "We're outnumbered, low on ammo, and more hostiles are probably en route." "We hold until extract arrives," Rivera shot back. "That's the mission." Josie's world narrowed to her optic sight picture. Acquire target, confirm hostile, squeeze trigger, move to next target. Her HK-416 was hot now, the barrel smoking from sustained fire, but still functioning perfectly. An insurgent appeared on her right flank, close enough that she could see his face clearly. His AK was coming up, finger on trigger. Josie was faster. 2 rounds center mass, the insurgent went down. "Last mag," Santos called. "Conserve ammo," Rivera ordered. "Make every shot count. Aimed fire only." The pace of American fire slowed dramatically. No more suppressive bursts. Now it was clinical precision, only firing when you had a confirmed target and a high probability shot. "I'm out," Lawson called, his HK-416's bolt locked back on an empty chamber. "Switching to sidearm." One operator down to his pistol meant they'd lost 20% of their firepower. "How long on that bird?" Rivera demanded. 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Josie had maybe 20 rounds left. The enemy had them outnumbered and was slowly tightening the noose. That's when the cavalry arrived. The roar of jet engines split the jungle air, massive and sudden and beautiful. An FA-18. Super Hornet streaked overhead, maybe 500 feet, followed seconds later by its wingman. "Cobra 1-1, this is ground team." Lawson was on the radio instantly. "We are danger close to enemy forces, requesting immediate air support. Will mark position with IR strobe." "Ground team Cobra 1-1, we have visual on your IR marker. Confirm you want ordnance on the targets west of your position?" "Affirmative. West side, multiple hostiles, bring the rain." "Copy, danger close. Keep your heads down." The FA-18S banked hard. Then they unleashed hell. The 20mm cannon fire sounded like the sky was tearing in half, hundreds of rounds per second, impacting the jungle west of their position. Trees exploded into splinters. Earth erupted in massive furrows. Insurgent fighters simply ceased to exist under that volume of fire. The effect on enemy morale was instantaneous and devastating. Fighters who'd been pressing the attack suddenly broke and ran, scrambling away from the apocalyptic destruction. "Shift fire to the boat," Rivera ordered, and Santos immediately engaged the second riverboat. Her rounds caught the boat operator, and this one veered off course and ran aground. The FA-18S made another pass, this time with rockets that impacted along the tree line. The jungle fell abruptly silent except for the fading roar of jet engines. "Ground team, Cobra 1-1. That's Winchester on ordnance. We'll remain on station for show of force until your extract arrives." "Cobra 1-1. Ground team, you are a beautiful human being. Thanks for the save." "Sound off," Rivera ordered. "Anyone hit?" "Flores good. Santos good. Lawson good. Williams good. Kramer stable, ready for extract." "Outstanding. Stay sharp. Tech, ETA on our ride. 25 minutes. The sound of helicopter rotors in the distance brought everyone's attention back. The Black Hawk was approaching, flying low and fast. "Prep for extract," Rivera ordered. "Flores, Santos, you're first on the bird with Kramer. Lawson, Williams, and I will provide security until everyone's loaded." The Black Hawk flared over the river, rotor wash whipping up spray, then pivoted to put its open door facing their position. The crew chief was already scanning for threats, the door gunner's minigun ready. "Go! Go! Go!" Rivera shouted. Josie broke from her position, sprinting the 15 meters to the helicopter with Santos right behind her and Williams half-carrying Kramer between them. Hands grabbed her vest, hauled her aboard. She immediately moved to the far side, HK-416 oriented outward to provide covering fire if needed. "Last 3, the crew chief shouted. Rivera, Lawson, and Williams broke from their positions in a coordinated sprint. 50 feet, 30, 20. The jungle erupted with gunfire. Again, a new insurgent force opened up from multiple positions. Rounds snapped through the air, impacted the helicopter's armored skin. "Suppressing!" Josie shouted, her HK-416 engaging targets, even though she had less than 15 rounds remaining. The door gunner's minigun opened up with its distinctive buzzsaw sound, thousands of rounds per minute shredding the jungle. One of the FA-18's dove low over the tree line, adding to the intimidation. Rivera reached the helicopter first, literally dove through the door. Lawson was right behind him. Williams made his final sprint and leaped aboard. The instant they cleared the door, the crew chief was shouting, "Go, go, go!" And the pilot was already pulling pitch, the Black Hawk clawing for altitude. Rounds continued to impact the aircraft as it climbed, but they were rising faster than the insurgents could adjust their aim. 50 feet, 100, 200. "Sound off!" Rivera ordered. "Who's hit?" "Everyone's good," Williams reported. "Kramer's stable." The Black Hawk banked hard, heading west toward friendly territory, the FA-18S maintaining protective escort. Below, the jungle stretched out endlessly, hiding its secrets, its dead, its lessons learned in blood and bullets. Josie slumped against the cargo bay wall, letting her HK-416 rest across her lap, bolt locked back on an empty chamber. The weapon had performed flawlessly throughout the entire operation. Hundreds of rounds fired, never a single malfunction. "Flores," Rivera said, "you saved Williams when you dropped that RPG team. That was exceptional shooting under pressure." "Just doing my job, Sergeant." "All of you performed exceptionally," Rivera continued. "This mission went sideways from the start. Expected to find our guy hiding. Instead, found him captured. Got into sustained firefights, burned through nearly all our ammunition. But we adapted. We improvised. We accomplished the mission. That's what Special Forces operators do." The crew chief was on the radio, coordinating with the forward operating base for immediate medical support on landing. "ETA to base, 15 minutes. Medical is standing by." The FOB appeared on the horizon, concrete walls, guard towers, organized rows of buildings. Home, or as close as you got in hostile territory. The Black Hawk settled onto the landing pad with practiced precision. Medical personnel rushed forward with stretchers for Kramer. Intelligence officers waited nearby for the laptop. "All right, people," Rivera said as the crew chief slid the door open. "Weapons to the armory, gear to the team room, then medical checks for everyone. Debrief happens at 1900 hours. They climbed out of the helicopter, legs stiff, bodies aching, but alive. Kramer was loaded onto a stretcher, managed a weak thumbs up as they carried him away. The man would recover, would eventually tell this story about the time Special Forces pulled him out of an impossible situation. Josie walked toward the armory, her HK-416 slung across her chest, her kit heavy with empty magazines. The shrapnel wound in her shoulder throbbed, but she ignored it. Flesh wounds healed. The armorer examined her HK-416 with professional interest. How many rounds? Approximately 190. Lost exact count during the final engagement. Any malfunctions? 0. Weapon performed flawlessly throughout. That's what I like to hear. I'll give it a detailed cleaning, should be ready for your next op by tomorrow. She made her way to the team room. Her teammates were already there, stripping out of their gear. "Med says Kramer's going to be fine," Williams reported. "Broken ribs, internal bruising, mild TBI. He'll hurt for a while, but he'll live. The laptop is already en route to Langley for data recovery." "Then mission success," Rivera confirmed. "We were tasked with recovering Kramer and securing the intelligence. We did both." That evening's debrief was thorough. They walked the intelligence officers through every phase of the operation. "Conservative estimate puts enemy casualties at 30 to 40 KIA, the S2 intelligence officer reported. "Your team effectively destroyed 2 reinforced squads." "The airstrikes did most of that," Santos said modestly. "The airstrikes finished what you started," the S2 corrected. "If you'd broken and run when first engaged, the enemy would have overrun you before air support could respond." "We don't break and run," Rivera said simply. "That's not what Special Forces operators do." Later, back in her quarters, Josie pulled out her maintenance kit and gave her HK-416 one more detailed cleaning. It was ritual more than necessity. The familiar motions, the smell of gun oil, the satisfaction of knowing her primary tool was in perfect condition. The weapon had saved her life more times than she could count. It had never failed her, never malfunctioned at a critical moment, never given her reason to doubt its reliability. Her phone buzzed. Text from Rivera. Team meeting 800 tomorrow. New op being briefed. Pack for extended deployment. Josie read the message, smiled slightly, typed back, Roger. Ready when needed. She set the phone aside and closed her eyes. Somewhere out there, another impossible mission was waiting. Another helicopter would need boarding. Another hostile territory would need infiltrating. And when that call came, when they loaded onto helicopters and prepared to jump into the unknown, she'd be ready. Her HK-416 would be ready. Her team would be ready. Because they were Special Forces operators. They did what others couldn't. They went where others wouldn't. They succeeded when failure seemed certain, and then they came home, maintained their gear, and prepared to do it all over again. That was the job, and Josie Flores wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to hear more powerful stories of brave women in uniform.